Hello, everyone, and welcome to another MMO Roundtable meeting. It's been a while since we've done a roundtable meeting, and for this one here, this is just going to be open discussion that'll probably end up touching on several things for the simple fact that this is the first time that we have met in a while. With us tonight, we've got Zach, we've got NATO, Chris, and also Nelson. So,
and of course, Jason.
And myself, Jason, yeah. That's a given. So again, open-ended. We were doing some discussion off camera, and I said, guys, let me go ahead and fire up the recording station because the idea of the MMO class was camera over the shoulder to capture all this stuff, and there was some interesting thoughts being slung around, so I thought it'd be nice to go ahead and make sure that we capture this. Again, I want to remind those of you that for whatever reason you may be new to the MMO class, and with the roundtable meetings being open to a single token holder, that means you may have just come into the MMO class and jumped right to this video because it's about to be a new one on the site. Who knows?
Which could be detrimental. You might get scared away.
Yeah. I just want to remind everyone that this, again, is not your regular educational lesson style VTM. It is more of a camera over the shoulder, and because of that, I don't go around the house and shut everyone up and put people in closets like normal when we're recording those types of VTMs. So if someone shows up at the front door and we hear dogs in the background, I'll just reach up and close my door. But it is just a reminder that with the number of videos that we want to be able to record in a short amount of time, I can't hold the whole family hostage. So again, camera over the shoulder. So with that, we, in our discussion that we were having before we started recording, NATO, you were about to say something. Do you, before Chris gets back into what his thought was when I said to hold it, Zach, do you want to spend just a minute and bring everybody up to speed on what we were discussing? Just so I have a general idea, starting with timeline.
Sure. Well, one of the things that we discussed pretty early on after the development of the story, particularly the human story, was that there was some back and forth as to of how long the timeline should be between the moment we had the object impact the Earth and the moment that humans actually found Alethea and, of course, found a means to truly get away from Earth, as opposed to, finding something like a moon colony or a Martian colony, an actual planet that would be a replacement for Earth. Now, in the original version of the story, I had written this up as a concept to take just a few hundred years. It was something between 200 and maybe 300 years at the outset. I didn't really imagine this taking super long, mostly because of the concerted efforts of the entire planet as opposed to just a few people who were occasionally peeking into telescopes like we have these days. But also because technology does move very fast, and once you get a couple of really big breakthroughs, it seems like that just grows and gets expanded upon really, really quickly. When you have a critical motivational factor such as, hey, guess what, the planet's going to die real soon, so we got to go, it seemed like that might actually make sense. But I can still see the benefit of shifting the timeline forward, and not just by a little. We're talking by a couple of millennia at least. Now, it does take you into a different paradigm in terms of sci-fi. Generally, your near future stuff. An example that NATO mentioned earlier, just before we started recording, was like the film Alien. Where you have a lot of that dirty, gringy stuff. Gringy? Gringy's not a word, but grungy. Just one letter over on the keyboard. Grungy stuff where you can still see plumbing along the walls, and everything that you see looks like it really could have been made, yesterday.
I want to jot years down just to kind of show them the points that NATO was making.
Well, sure. Like he had mentioned that even in like the film Alien, that took place like sometime in 21 XDX. Just a little over 100 years from now, and that's kind of where I was thinking we'd be going to. Where once we made it out to Alethea, it was maybe only the year. Not 2000, but maybe 23 XDX or something. It wasn't that far off. Now, at the same time, if you do move it forward in the future, it arguably, and I'm just going to put arguably like mentally in quotes. So let me jot this down real quick. So originally, I was thinking that Alethea would be less than 500 years in the future. So I don't really remember.
And when you say less than 500 years, you're thinking
when we make it there. So,
point of so still not start of game.
Yes.
Okay.
Humans on Alethea is less than 500 years from right now. But I can still see where...
Nelson, you're super extra fidgety. You really need some WD-40.
Maybe he's got something to say.
No.
I can see where if you went forward, 2,000 to 3,000 years, it does open a few things up. Arguably, it gives you more flexibility in terms of what is and is not possible. The big reason I didn't do that is that in terms of conventional sci-fi as we know it, and I got to really kind of watch what I say there, because all bets really are off when it comes to sci-fi. Anyhow, a lot of folk, including myself, you picture that far into the future somehow magically turning into like Dune, where everything is so high tech that you just absolutely don't understand it. And I don't mean the 1970s film where people are shouting into ray guns and stuff. That was just weird. But you picture everything almost turning into Star Trek, where there's no visible circuits anywhere and everything just kind of magically works and it's super streamlined. And I was still going for something a little grungier, a little dirty, and I have this conception, be it right or be it wrong, that if you're still going for that kind of look, that's a near future thing. That ideally, which is probably not the case at all, but ideally, once you got thousands of years into the future, stuff would become much more streamlined, and we'd have no idea how it works, and be like, smooth magic everywhere. Yeah,
smooth magic.
That's right.
I like
that's
that.
Right.
Very, very clever.
So we've been kind of talking about going back and forth as to how the timelines should shift between the moment we had the big impact on the Earth to the moment we actually make it to Alethea.
To the moment the game begins.
To the moment the game begins.
So now that would be appropriate for a smiley face. Okay, I got you, controller. Nice.
So from here, we were thinking that we should have something like what could be maybe 2,000 years or so.
And just to be fair, in case anyone's going, that really comes from me, because again, Zach had written everything with taking place in less than 500 years, with thinking more 250 to, geez, you don't have to emphasize it, Zach, neon sign maybe, but thinking with 250 to 300 years being enough time. And to me, and I've mentioned this in past classes, but there wasn't as much focus on discussion as we're having now. The problem I had with that was I'm just envisioning this fantastical future that's so high tech as far as the humans are concerned, and it's some pretty big traveling that we've done and some pretty big development that we've done there on Alethea. So it just felt like it needed to be a larger number of years. Though, after discussing it again with Zach, because earlier today I told Zach that I wanted us to do a better recording of the stories and put them out as standalones that people can take with them on their iPods or MP3 players, etc. Not part of an entire class. So this way I can give them out. It's much higher quality, and everybody knows how great of a job Zach does with reading this stuff. So Zach took a look at it, started kind of going back over everything and getting it fresh in his mind for recording, and said, these numbers that I've got in here for these corporations developing and different events that are taking place, they don't work really well. And I told him to try to start stretching stuff out, and that's where you really start running into trouble, right, Zach?
Absolutely. Actually, I forgot this good thing actually hit Antarctica, so I should do that.
So we do that, yeah, gotcha.
Well, the problem that I ran into is that again, a lot of this is just my interpretation of things, and I welcome somebody to say, well, Zach, you're out of your mind. But it seemed like if you're going to stretch the timeline out into the thousands of years as opposed to just the hundreds of years, you really do expect there to be a lot of radical change. And one of the things that I had handled in the human story development was the initial formation of a lot of the primary corporations we would see later on in the game.
Right.
NTR actually spawns out of NASA and another aerospace conglomerate named Tomo Raitan out of China and India. They came together. We see the rise of Sapienetics as a biotechnology leader. We see Hamamoto Industries appearing. All of these big corporations that I'd envisioned playing primary roles in the game. But I don't yet have a concept in my head a clear concept that I'm comfortable with of corporations that literally last through millennia.
Right. And
At least not in the same form that they would be when they were conceived.
right. And that's cool. Zach did give it a try and felt that it just didn't work. We discussed it a bit, and in the next video, we're going to hear what Nelson and Chris have to say, just so that everyone knows I'm going to try my best to keep these videos short. I have found that to be helpful for the small number of people out there that seem to have streaming issues instead of, massive videos.
Or possibly even attention span issues, and you know who you are.
Because for you guys, it'll just be nothing but then clicking on to the next video. So it'll be a little easier to manage these at bite-sized videos instead of, a 4-hour video, which even this one could easily be that. So this is a good spot. So here over, probably by the next video, we'll probably conclude this determination. But I do want to hear both Chris and Nelson's thoughts. So we'll see you guys in the next video, and we'll continue with this open discussion about the timeline. Thanks.